Welcome to HortTube. My name is Jim Putnam. I thought it was time to take a little bit of a break from all the installing plants and mulching and edging and all the other things we've had going on here in the garden this season, including I'm in the middle of building a patio in the back garden, and a fence has been torn down that's going to go back up in the next few weeks, and all kinds of projects going on. But I wanted to take a break because I pulled up the original video from the before and after video or the before video of this garden here in Raleigh, North Carolina. And I just kind of wanted to take some of the same angles here and show off the big changes that have occurred. So if you're looking at that original piece of video, I was standing out here at the road where Steph is with the camera, and there was a maple here that was a pretty good sized maple. It was not the happiest thing on earth. It was probably about a little over a foot caliper right down at the base of the tree. Absolutely dominated this space and continues to dominate this space even today because there are roots running everywhere out here. So there's virtually no hole that can be dug in this garden where you're not going to find roots that are pretty good size on them, which is something I've talked about over the years about gardening with maples, with red maples specifically, not Japanese maples, but red maples specifically, Acer rubrum. There's one in our neighbor's garden over here that also runs roots this direction, and you can see it hanging over the garden this way. And it looks okay coming out this spring, other than the fact that they have to take one side of it off because the electric lines are on that side. But it's in a struggle every summer, dropping leaves. These trees aren't that happy in these small urban spaces. Of course, the biggest change that you will have seen in this is the house itself, because it had a green aluminum siding on it that had been, I don't know how long ago it had been installed from the original. There's only been two owners in this house's history, and so the lady that was in it for a very, very, very long time at some point had changed the siding over to that green aluminum siding. And it had that little shed roof in the front. So we were originally in that original video that I put up talking about putting a whole porch across the front of it, and that may still be in the plans in the future. But the price of everything, escalated on us during this 4 years of this project. And so we ended up just putting a new type of porch, a new roof line on the porch. So when you walk up there, it's not pouring water on you. The old porch it was pouring water directly off the front. So if you went, no matter, you could stand under it and not get wet, but if you tried to walk out from under it, it just poured water right on your head. So anyway, now it sheds it off left and right. Obviously the colors are different. The steps have been redone. The rail has been redone. Foundation has been painted. So lots and lots of work went in. And you see lots of plants in this garden, but I always want to make sure that we remember that all of this was built on soil, right? So all of this, compost was added originally, wood chips were added originally, and so this was all built on a good foundation. This spring, we have gained new space. This was a turf area that I'm standing in. We've turned it into bed space. There's some empty spots in it that we'll eventually fill in. Another project that happened out here was the front fence, and I think Steph is backing up here now where you can see the fence kind of delineated the front garden space. And where we are right this minute in the season is things are just waking up. So there's actually a hydrangea paniculata back here that will be about this tall behind the fence. There's a calicarpa a little further down that'll be up higher. There's what we've done is we'll have something on the outside that'll get a little tall and then rotate back and forth where there's something of height on each side of the fence. So you can still see the fence no matter which side you're standing on. But it does a pretty good job of delineating the front garden space and gives us, anytime you can put something like that in a garden, you can then garden both sides of it, right? And it creates a space where you can put small things on both sides of it. If we didn't have the fence sitting there, a lot of the things would be lost. Plus it just does a good job of delineating. The little stone path went through the middle here, and in that original video you can see the Empress of China dogwood here was only about 2.5 feet tall, and now it's 8 feet tall. It's rained a bunch here yesterday and it's wet, so it's weighting it down some, but that'll show you how much this thing has actually grown in 4 years. And I think the back garden maybe as different as this is out here, I think the back garden maybe even more so. I started that original video in front of the shed here, and the shed had been framed, but it did not, none of the decorative parts had been added. Of course, it had not been painted at that time, and the rest of this back garden space was a blank slate. There was a red bud over here, and the stump is still here. I definitely didn't mind cutting down that red maple out front. I just know how hard they are to actually landscape with. I know how dry all the plants would have been out there. I know the ongoing battle that I would have faced having that tree be the, be the big tree out in the front garden. I really did not want to cut down this native red bud as much, though. There's another one over here, so we still have one, and then you could probably see the Golden Falls red bud in front of you, which is a named cultivar of our native red bud. But I'm not into cutting down native trees necessarily. But that one, the way this one was sitting, it was right here, and the limbs went out in so far that it ate up this entire corner, and you actually couldn't see beyond it. It looked like the lot just kind of ended out here where the limbs were. And so just the placement of it, if it was placed back further into this corner or into one of the corners, it would have been a much better, it would have been left for sure. But just again, because it was just eating up like 25% of the back garden, it didn't make any sense to leave it. And we've planted lots of other natives back in here in time. So there is an H and a T. The grapevine is eating it right now, but there was an H and a T for HortTube added to the building. And then of course, we painted this first. So the house, normally you paint your shed based on your house color. We painted our house probably based on our shed color, but it looks good. It looks good. This is NC State neighborhood for sure. And, so having the blue and white is probably, it's probably frowned upon, but I don't think anybody has a red house either. So it'll be okay. This is the spot I started the back garden tour in that initial video. And basically from there back, you could see the building was just, again, unpainted. And then it was just a completely open canvas back in this back garden. This area had been a vegetable garden in the past, and it continues to be our vegetable garden. And the main reason is because it's the only area that gets sun all day long. I would actually integrate my vegetables into our other annual borders. And we have some eggplant planted in the front garden in the annual border out there. But I would do that with all the vegetables if everything in the garden got full sun, but it just doesn't. This area right here is the only area in the garden that basically from 7 in the morning until 6 in the evening stays in the full sun, okay? Everything else in this garden, from there that way, by the middle of the afternoon, there's a giant white oak back here on the back property. And I showed that in the first video, that just absolutely dominates this property. It hasn't gotten smaller in 4 years. It's gotten bigger. and we did hire someone to go up there and take a few limbs that were hanging over this garden off so that we could get a little bit more sun in the afternoon and not have these really large limbs that at some point probably would have fallen out into this garden. But that was done. And then a path system was put in, and I'm going to show that in some other upcoming content about how all the paths were laid out. I have drone footage of how that was done from the top down. And so you can navigate this garden in a way that it can be maintained much easier. We can get a load of mulch dropped on the driveway, and then there's a path. If you need to get somewhere, you can get somewhere in this garden. One of the bigger changes that we'll notice over 4 years is that Holly's face in the 4 or 5 years ago was black. There's no more black in her face anymore. She is definitely got nothing but a old, she got this old white face now. And she always looks sad like this. I think sometimes people see her and think that she looks sad, but that's just the look that this dog has always had. But she is 15 going on 16. I'm gonna have to start calling her 16 sometime during the summertime this year. But she's still She's still out here and she's still in the videos, but her face has definitely changed in the 4 years since that original video. The back of the house, exactly the same as the front of the house. It had a screen porch on it, but it was leaking and it was a flat roof. And you know, flat roofs eventually, you know, you're gonna have problems on them. So that the flat roof screen porch came down. This one went up. This little arch was put into it. The steps here, I feel like are a bit undersized for the size and the scale of the screen porch, and maybe in the future I'll bulk them up just a bit. I am in the middle of putting in this this patio. This one of the things that happens in gardening, you know, 4 years ago when I started this was going to be turf, and there was small space in the front garden was going to be turf, and I think I was doing that more for having a YouTube channel so that I could show off some turf more than I was anything that I would actually do. The only turf I had at my old house was in the ditches, because I just didn't want to maintain the ditches as any other way. It was just easier to mow them. But everything else at the other garden was beds. And that's just kind of the way I approach gardening is, you know, the turf that was there had a purpose in filtering the water that was coming down through my neighborhood, you know, and through those ditches. Other than that, I didn't have any other purpose for the turf. My son's best friend had a large open space in their garden, and that's where they played. And so we just didn't need it. We didn't need it in ours. And so that's what I always say is turf with a purpose. What is the purpose of it? And then, you know, design it based on the purpose that you have. You have young children, yes, lots of open grassy spaces for sure. And, you know, all that. As you can see how significant the changes are on this space. The pandemic definitely slowed this down. We would have probably been 2 years ago, maybe showing off more of this than we are now. But it definitely definitely slowed down the house project, and by slowing down the house project, then slowed down the actual planting around the envelope of the house. I'll show in another video from up top with the drone, you know, the path system, how the path system works here, but it goes around the back there and comes back around to here. So it enters. There's 3 different trails that will hit the patio, so that, you know, everything comes together. But again, you can take a wheelbarrow from any direction. Also, when we have guests here in the garden, another thing I learned, and again, you know, you're going to design something and then you're going to probably make changes in future years. I had a garden group here last year and realized that our trail system had a couple of dead ends. And those dead ends ended up trapping people because there were so many people here. So we, you know, you modify things as you go. You're not going to get garden design 100% correct, you know, the first go around. This is a significant corner back here because, again, it had a metal building. I took the skin off of it. I was going to turn it into a greenhouse, decided that I didn't need a greenhouse. So we've been planting back here. And then over my right shoulder, the neighbor's shed had 2 different, this side of the shed has a new fresh coat of paint on it, and we have screening plants from one end to the other. So within the next 12, 14 months or something, most of that's going to be gone. The plants that are back here will grow pretty quickly and start to cover up some of that. We have left some space in this garden in various places that we can continue to add some pieces to, because we do some traveling. We bring back some plants from places, plants that have stories. Plants that have stories are kind of important to us. And so we've left a few spaces in the garden where, you know, we have not rushing to make decisions so that we can just say we're completely finished with this garden. We won't ever be finished with this garden completely, because I would love to have the vast majority of the plants in this garden. I can tell you where they came from, tell you some story about them, tell you that they have some memory, that kind of thing. So there you go. There is a you can see the old footage with the new footage put together, and how far this garden's come in 4 years. And we still have some few things that we're obviously working on that we'll continue to show off. So thank you for following along with it.